So as you might expect, fans are somewhat split when it comes to the new Pokemon Sword and Shield DLC that was recently announced, and this seems to be the case not only in the English-speaking Pokemon community, but also in the Japanese-speaking Pokemon community. So today, I thought we'd take a look at what some Japanese Pokemon fans are saying on Twitter. So if you don't really have the details on the Isle of Armor and Crown Tundra DLC that are coming out this year, I've put the details down in the description, check it out if you're interested. But to be honest, they seem like pretty robust, interesting DLC. And I think that if it wasn't for the fact that Sword and Shield kicked up so much controversy around the whole National Dex thing and everything, people across the board would be pretty excited about what these two DLC packs have to offer. Based on the information provided, these two DLC packs have a lot of really great content for Pokemon fans, so it really comes down to the fact that Sword and Shield felt very incomplete to a lot of players around the world. So before we dive into the tweets, just to quickly recap my thoughts on the Sword and Shield games. I know that a lot of people were super worked up about the whole National Dex thing, but I really didn't care too much about it because I don't have the time to collect all the Pokemon anymore anyways. And I did think there were a lot of good points about Sword and Shield. The art direction was overall pretty nice, the world had a good vibe going on, I liked the stadium battles, those were pretty exciting. Corviknight was cool, Dynamaxing was surprisingly pretty fun. I honestly had a lot of fun playing the games, but of course there were a few things that did detract from the experience. I felt like the towns were pretty, but felt kind of empty. I was disappointed there weren't more wild areas, because this was a big draw of the game for me. When I was about to finish up the game, I was like, oh, that was the only wild area? Kind of disappointed. I also felt that the story was not so good, and I would have liked a little bit more mystery around the legendary Pokemon. You know, like back in the day, you go looking for Articuno, Moltres, Zapdos. They don't just put them there right in your face. The trains didn't serve much of a purpose. I was really looking forward to that and hoping they would play a bit more of a prominent role. And of course, overall, the games just don't feel like a kind of big jump forward for the series like a lot of us were expecting. And it was hard not to feel like the games did feel a bit skeletal in different ways. And this is what a lot of fans are upset about. They feel like Game Freak purposely withheld a whole bunch of features in Pokemon so they could set up these DLC packs to make a profit. Or, similarly, they just weren't able to make the deadline for the game, so they released a fairly hollowed out version of it and then just pushed all this other stuff into the DLC packs that should have been in the original Sword and Shield. And so various fans feel like the original games were incomplete, and thus they are pissed about the new DLC, where, on the other hand, a lot of people are really excited because these are pretty robust DLC packs. They're offering a lot of good content to players. So I can see where both sides are coming from, but let's jump in and see what the Pokemon fans on Japanese Twitter are saying. 2 months haven't even passed since launch and DLC is being introduced? Seems like Sword and Shield was an incomplete product after all. Saying Sword and Shield was sold as an incomplete product is no joke. I mean, within 2 months they boldly announced this paid DLC, when usually it takes about half a year. They should have just delayed the game's release. Announcing something as big as this within 2 months just shows that they couldn't make the release deadline, doesn't it? There are a lot of people who are moved or thankful for what's being offered in the DLC, but they should have offered this much from the beginning. That's just how hollow Sword and Shield felt. Just like FF15. So you took out the events originally in the game and turned them into DLC. Quit screwing around with us. You forced the sale of Sword and Shield as a skeletal, incomplete product. Give us our money back. Recently, some Nintendo products have been pretty half-baked. So a lot of people pretty pissed off about the DLC coming out so soon, but there were some people who came out and went to bat for Game Freak, like this man. Even though the Pokemon Sword and Shield paid DLC is totally loaded, people are saying things like, you have to pay for it? Add so-and-so for free. Just shut up and don't bother buying it. People who forget that you actually need to pay for services to receive them are such shameless creatures. Saying you went out of your way to give them money for a game that you wanted to buy and then bought is pretty weird. Did someone force you to buy it? Were you in a situation where you absolutely had to buy it? People who want to play can buy the DLC, and people who don't need to buy it. If you want to play for free, play free-to-play games. Saying a game is incomplete because it gets DLC is the same as ordering a 500 yen bowl of soba and then ordering an extra shrimp tempura topping for an additional 200 yen and saying, hey, you gave me an incomplete meal. Just because you have the option of either leaving it at 500 yen or gaining additional satisfaction for an additional 200 yen, calling the original meal incomplete is pretty damn rude. It's like customers who sit in a soba shop endlessly drinking soba broth for free, looking at the customers who paid to actually eat soba and yelling at them that it's unfair. Pretty interesting metaphor right there, and a lot of people were soon to jump in and leave their comments on this guy's tweet. There are only 3 legendaries in Sword and Shield. and the story was complete garbage. We paid money for that, so it's only natural to expect a free update, you idiot. Buying a game and playing it, paying for soba at a soba shop and eating it, in either case, it's not far from selling a purposely reduced quantity of ramen and then charging additional fees for a second serving of noodles. Yeah, but if that ramen is delicious, you'll go eat it. Yes, if you think it's delicious, you can buy servings to your heart's content. Personally, even if it's paid DLC, if we're getting that content at that price, I'll be totally satisfied. Regarding the Pokemon being added, you can update for free to obtain them via trading. So what exactly are people dissatisfied about? Either way, it's like, even though tempura soba was always the default menu choice, you suddenly receive zaru soba with nothing but green onion as a topping, but at the same price. And if you want the tempura that you'd previously received, you'd have to fork over an additional 50% of the menu item's price on top of what you used to pay. So this guy is probably a national Dexter here. You can see that he felt like the original content was incomplete, and in the past we'd played for really full-feeling Pokemon games, so now you're getting this skimpy version and having to pay extra to actually get any satisfaction out of it relative to what you used to enjoy. No, it included the usual kind of story we're used to, and it was fun, and even though there were only 3 legendaries, that was plenty. Now we're getting new Pokemon and areas for 3,000 yen, when we usually pay 5,000 to 6,000 yen for a version with minor changes. So this is pretty kind of them. This approach is much more reasonable than releasing a new version as a separate piece of software within the same generation as has been done up until now. Very good point. Compared to the practice of selling updates as a standalone game, this is much fairer. So I have to say that some of these people chiming in at the end here have a pretty good point. We've always picked up those extra versions of games across the years, whether it was Yellow or Crystal or Platinum, etc., which didn't really offer a whole lot, and yet they were full priced. So if you bear that in mind, these DLC packs actually look pretty good. Sword and Shield, if they hadn't been so controversial and, to be honest, a little bit underwhelming, people would be absolutely delighted with this DLC across the globe. It's just 15 bucks a piece for what appears to be some pretty full-fledged DLC. Not a bad deal at all, especially considering that we've paid so much for these additional versions of Pokemon games in the past that didn't offer a whole lot of new content. But yeah, I totally get what the faction of people who are a little pissed off are upset about. The games did feel a bit hollowed out, and I must say, for myself, I was near the end of the game and I was kind of like, just what? That's the only wild area? I was really hoping that there would be, you know, some other extra wild areas we could go to. It felt like there should be, because that was a big draw of the game, but you know, that's how it was. So what do you think about the DLC? What do you think about the original Sword and Shield games? Did they rip players off with the original games and they're just on a profit roll with these new ones? Did they purposely hold back the Pokemon, the 200 plus Pokemon that are going to make it into the games with the new update and the DLC? Or was it all fair and square and these new DLC packs are absolute gems and a good step forward for the Pokemon series? Let me know in the comments. Let's chat.